press the record button, and I've had to go back and re-record the whole thing on my own, which was a wee bit of a nightmare. So I'm going to get started. I am excited to be here. Hopefully you all can see and hear me. We have someone in the chat already. Thanks, Scott. I'm digging the hat as well. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. It is my new thing, right? Quarantine has brought out the best of me in a new hat. So I know we all signed up and we were chatting about 2 essential marketing strategies, but I felt like 2 wasn't good enough. I'm going to take it up a notch. And for those of you who do follow me, some of this might be stuff that you've heard already. Some of it might not be, with a little bit of a different spin. But let's just kind of dive in. Let me put my little clicker on. Let me go. And I do have a warning for everyone that does watch this webinar that my goal is that attending this workshop is going to make you better at marketing than 4 out of 5 self-proclaimed experts. Experts in a little bit of a bunny ear because the barrier to entry to marketing is so low these days that you have a hard time businesses have a hard time understanding who do we trust, who do we not trust. So a little bit about me. I am Steven Picanza. I'm out of the Cherry Hill 1776 campus. What's up to Scott and all my peeps over there? I hope to see you guys soon. I also teach branding at Drexel University here in Philadelphia, as well as the European Institute of Design in Milano. I'm an international instructor there, as well as John Cabot University in Rome, and a bunch of other workshops you could find me around. Used to be either in California or here in the Philadelphia area, but now it's virtual, and so I can, like American Express, I'm everywhere you want me to be. And here's my contact info. If you want to, get in touch with me, here's all my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. And if I look like I'm doing something different, I'm just letting people into the room. I'm a one-man show today. So we're just going to do what we do. But I am huge on LinkedIn and Twitter, a huge component of it. I think that it's a powerful, powerful tool to connect with people. So I'm hoping that after this webinar, everyone who's attended this webinar, we're not already connected. I have a new request over there from you, and we can hopefully be connected there as well. So brilliant. So going into it, for those of you that don't know, I am the co-founder with Latin & Code, as well as the agency guy, where I am a senior brand advisor. Really with the agency guy, our main mission is to connect brands to agencies, and we usually do this at no cost to the brand. And the idea is we really want to make marketing, digital marketing, branding, and whatnot, vendor procurement, and really just understanding it as simple as possible. There's a lot of snake salesmen and a lot of just advice out there. Whether it's good or not for your business is a whole different story. So that's really what we hope to achieve here. And I've written a bunch of cool articles and a bunch of cool logos I could put right over here. But I write 6 times a year, so every other month, I do write for Sound and Communications magazine, which is predominantly around the audio visual industry and whatnot. So that's all to say that yeah, I'm out there and I'm doing my thing. But for you all that are here, I do have a free gift. Maybe actually 2 free gifts if we play our cards right. But I'm going to show you what that is at the end of the presentation, and how you're able to get that gift. So again, my goals for today is I just want to give you actual steps that you can leave here with. It's going to be some theoretical, it's going to make you think a little bit, but at the same time, I want you to be able to leave here and be like, I could put this into practice today. There's at least one thing I can take and start to work on today. And again, I've been in this industry for 15 years. I've owned an agency for many years ago. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different examples and stories from really the last 15 years of building brands. And finally, I don't want to bore you with buzzwords or marketing jargon. I will save that for some of those self-proclaimed gurus that I was talking about earlier. So specifically what we're talking about today are the strategies you're going to need to future-proof your business. Today, more than ever, we all need to have this idea of future-proofing and insulating our organization so we don't run into the same, or we run into problems when the next pandemic happens, or if COVID, continues to escalate and scale. Um, Also, we want to talk about how to understand your brand DNA and really how this is going to help keep that sales funnel full. The great thing about this, and what I'm going to show you, is last weekend I did a webinar for a society out of Bahrain, all about personal branding. And what I'm going to show you relies equally to personal branding as it does to corporate branding. And so if you're looking at it in that way, today more than ever, we need to be focusing on our personal brand. We need to, the next furlough could be around the corner. And if it is, what's going to happen at that point? I got someone in the chat. Let me just check real quick. Jessica, we're on the recording. Yes, TJ, we will have a recording. We will have a recording. Absolutely, sir. Or ma'am, sorry. And also marketing strategies. The last thing we're going to show you are a couple strategies that are going to be able to keep that funnel full and to really keep you top of mind. All right, so let's get real for a second. Here we are, the middle of July. How about that? We have to come to the table with a couple assumptions today, July 22nd, 2020. And the number one thing is our audience has changed forever. I've been saying this for a couple months now because it has absolutely become more and more apparent. Whether we're talking about retail inside of the inside of a brick and mortar, or we're talking about online, our habits have changed on how we buy things, the way that we're consuming content and purchasing products has changed. And our audience, we're such in a paradigm shift on consumerism that to be able to market to our audience correctly, in some regard, we need to take a bit of a step back. Because these habits, which has impacted everything, the whole supply chain, media, everything is continuously, becoming apparent. Every day you turn on the news and every day you're reading about businesses that are shuttering, going out of business. Look at restaurants, right? Look how much the restaurants are being impacted. Also, we need to understand that those brands that have maybe lagged on fully integrating in digital, or those organizations that are perhaps too large and have too much of a legacy to fully dive into digital, you have to now. Digital first is today, it's now, it's where we're playing. Perfect example is I'm working with a bank out of Seattle. And I've been working with this bank now for about 2 years. And I'm putting content strategies together for their new HQ, for their physical, actual retail banking experience. Their whole mantra coming into this project was digital first by 2025, digital first by 2025. Well, don't you know that 2025 escalated to their internal mantra? We have to be digital first now. We have to, because our audience is digital first. Our audience is relying on, these institutions that they have for so many years to meet them on their playing field. And their playing field is all now on a mobile phone and on a computer, not necessarily going inside the bank, because we don't know when we're going to be able to go inside the bank. So businesses are being forced into transformation. They're being forced to think about digital. And also, we need to remember that this idea of guiding our customers and acting with empathy and authority, because those consumers that are being forced to, do everything now digitally, whether you wanted to or not, we're in a different headspace. We are in a different environment, and organizations, whether your organization is a personal brand or not, we all just need to remember that. And one of the things that I've said to a couple colleagues of mine recently is we need to remember that we need to stay human at all times. We just need to remember that we're human. And we see a lot of cases, unfortunately, on the news. We see a lot of cases just going on around us of just the worst of humanity. And as an organization, let's strive to be the best of humanity. And by doing all that, you're essentially starting to align your brand to marketing with the end goal of producing sales. So this first part that we're going to talk about, the power of branding, is just what this slide represents. Same pair of shoes. The one on the left has no branding on it. You buy for $15, and the one on the right with the pink swoosh which we all know is Nike, sells for $150. What I'm illuminating here is that as we step back and think about the core strategies to connect with our audience, we need to remember the power of branding as a strategy, the power of understanding what a true brand is in order to connect with our audience and grow our business. So really one of the first strategies we're going to talk about is this idea of your brand strategy, which is equally as important, everyone. Personal branding, corporate branding, hell, startup branding, nonprofit branding, it's all going to start with the same concrete foundation. So part of how we set the stage, how I want to set the stage is just, oh, whoops, wrong way, is just talk about some branding misconceptions that are out there. Everyone thinks that they know branding, and when we start to engage and we start to talk, oftentimes the first thing that comes out is, oh yeah, branding. I need a new logo, Steven. Well, the first misconception is branding is not truly your logo. It's usually the last thing that people are going to see about your organization. It's everything else that leads up to it. And in the branding process, when I'm taking an organization through a brand refresh, or we're looking at your brand and putting together a new brand playbook, the creative is sort of the last part of the puzzle. There's so much more that needs to happen prior to getting there. The second misconception is your products don't define your brand, as evident here with the AirPods, right? The AirPods don't define the Apple brand, and neither should your product, because your products are going to change. Your products are going to change with your audience. They should change with your audience. And so we want to make sure that at all times, we're understanding that there is that separation. And if you are in the unfortunate spot of where your products are defining your brand, this is equally as important on why we need to go back to the foundation and understand what that value proposition and what that positioning is and what your audience truly wants, so we can continue to deliver on those promises. The next misconception is about your price. There's a lot of organizations out there, especially true in the fitness world, when the fitness world was what it was. I was working with a gym who wanted to be the $9.99 gym no matter what, and that's what they wanted to brand themselves as. Not to take into account inflation or when they have to raise their pricing, or if their footprint becomes more expensive, therefore the services that they offer become more expensive. It creates a little bit more of a harder path. It's not impossible. It's just a little bit of a harder path, and you're truly not leading with the value. You're leading with the price, and that becomes challenging at times. We always want to try to lead with value. That's how we're going to win the hearts and minds of our audience, is through that value. Also, branding is not your advertising. Oftentimes, these two get misconstrued together. Case in point is the Nike Just Do It. That's not necessarily their brand. That's an advertising campaign. It just happens to be a brilliant one that's lasted, a century now, it feels like. But Nike's brand is predicated on providing awesome apparel for the elite athletes of the world. So when we think about advertising, oftentimes advertising is centered around trying to promote a specific product or service. Obviously, if the brand only has one specific product or service, then in some case, the advertising might somewhat define that brand. But for an organization, let's just take a car manufacturer, let's just take Ford. The F-150 has its own campaign. The Explorer has its own campaign. The new Bronco, which, by the way, I'm loving the new Bronco. I actually want to buy one when they come out. They have a new campaign. So we have to remember that there is that separation. And we live in such a unique time and place in the world where personalization is as important and as easy as it is. So we might even want to get very local and hyper targeted with our advertising, with our audience personas, so we can truly articulate and essentially sell and market our goods and services to that specific audience group. Also, branding is not your website. Everyone knows Amazon. We all use Amazon. We use Amazon way too much. I swear I have Amazon coming to my house every day. But when you think of Amazon, I don't think about their website. Even though they are an e-commerce marketplace, I think about the fact that Amazon allows me to get anything I want delivered to my door in like no time. It makes my life easier. That's the brilliance of the Amazon brand, that they built such a incredible user experience and giving you everything you need at the tips of your fingers, that we don't think about them as a website. We think about them as convenience, as making our lives easier, especially today. And in some cases, Amazon is also a business model. I sell things on Amazon, and we use it as as a way to reach a new audience. So it's more than just a static website in that sense. And going back, and this ties in line with what we were talking about with advertising. Well, branding is not your tagline. GE, we bring good things to life. We bring good things to life wasn't their brand. The GE brand is giving electricity to millions of people so they can live the best life that they can. And it's innovation. It's powering, vehicles that go to space and into the moon. That's GE. We bring good things to life with just a short-lived campaign that is memorable, and that's the point of a tagline, but it is not defining of that brand. So what is a brand, Steven? You said everything that it isn't. Tell me what it actually is. Well, a brand is what your prospect thinks of when he or she hears your brand name. Personal branding would say your personal brand is what your prospect thinks of when he or she hears your name in general. Sounds like reputation in a way, because it absolutely is. Marty Neumeier, who is one of the most formidable sources of brand knowledge and brand strategy today, says, very, very simply, mind you, it's a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. Because brands are defined 100% by the individual, by you. Right now, you are all defining me as a personal brand. I can only do so much. Branding is not defined by a parent company or a hashtag or even a market trend. So this idea of this modern day brand I want to bring into light, it really centers around a couple core tenets. Number one is being authentic at all times, because the optics are on us, the eyeballs are on us. There is no turning off with social and with the web. So we need to act with integrity. We need to say what we do what we say, not be, all those things that we were raised all well. We need to take in those core, ethics, I guess we can call them, and we need to instill that in our brand. We need to instill that in our business organization and how we do business. As Henry Ford says, we all need to be obsessed with customer experience. It is not the employer who pays the wages. Employers only handle the money. It's transactional. It is the customer who pays the wages. Because without the customer purchasing the product, you are not in business. So that's where the relationship needs to, really flourish. Right in the middle, it's almost commoditized, right? The employers. There's always going to be a new employer, but we want to have that relationship with the customer and be so obsessed with that experience. Also, the modern day brands are well positioned. Positioning is a tricky subject. It's a tricky subject depending on your organization, depending on the tentacles of your organization. But really what it comes down to is this idea of, what problem do we solve, and for whom, and what does success look like afterwards? And if we're able to identify that, and I'm going to show you a formula later on to identify that, then we understand where our positioning is. We understand where our line in the sand is. We don't want to be, swayed by shiny, bright new objects. And I see it all the time. All of a sudden, TikTok comes around, and every brand says, we got to go on TikTok. We're not even thinking about, well, does our audience, do they live on TikTok? Do they want us to be on TikTok? Do they even know what the hell TikTok is? But no, just because it's the latest and greatest things, we're going to abandon our laurels and go. The right positioning of your organization should prevent that. Also is this idea that modern day brands are built on trust. And trust, very simply, is reliability plus delight. My favorite story about this is Starbucks. Not a fan of their coffee. But I will go there. Why will I go there? Well, because I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what it's going to sound like. I know what it's going to smell like. I know that there's going to be seats there. I know the Wi-Fi is going to work. I know that their bathrooms are probably going to be clean. So they're reliable. I know what I'm getting into when I go there. But also, if I order some ridiculous drink, upside down, triple shot caramel, whipped cream, and chocolate chips, and they make it for me and it's not right, and I go back, well, they're going to remake it for me. Right? It doesn't matter. The customer is always right. So they're always delighting me in that sense. So we have this reliability plus delight. What happens? I trust Starbucks now. And that's why millions of people continuously go to Starbucks, addicted to Starbucks. I have to have my Starbucks. I need to have my Starbucks because there is such trust there. And that's why Starbucks is able to start testing new concepts. They introduced food. They introduced, some locations have alcohol, whether it's beer or wine. Some locations are a little bit more geared towards co-working, while others are more towards the European cafe sense. They have that ability to navigate because they have the audience base that's going to basically buy anything that they put out there. Trust, all about that. And then this modern day brand acts as a guide to the hero. Your customers are the hero. Too many times organizations want to think that they are the hero. We are here to save it all. We're going to save mankind. Not understanding that if we are able to turn the conversation around, so we act as a guide to our hero, well, then we're in a unique place to where our audience, our customer trusts us enough that we can introduce whatever framework, whatever IP, whatever our offer is, and we've created such a great relationship and such trust that they're going to go with us. And Yoda is the perfect example of the guide. He was the guide to Luke Skywalker and showed him the way to become, to becoming a Jedi. Right? Was that right? I may have messed that one up. It's been a morning so far, everyone. So let's just talk about this idea of weathering the storm. I always say, screw the storm. Let's go dance in the rain. We have one opportunity. One opportunity to make a first and lasting impression. Let's make it a good one. Someone's in the chat going to call me out about something. You nailed it. Yoda is the ultimate guide. Thank you. All right. Let's go into these 3 strategies now. Right now. Speaking of now, I call this one the now strategy. Why is it the now strategy? It's a very weird business world out there, and so many organizations I'm working with are being reactive. They're reactive because they don't necessarily know how they're going to make money in the next 30, 60, 90, or 120 days. And that's what sometimes we need to think about. When COVID first hit, and it was March, I remember it in March, I left Cherry Hill Mall and went back to my home office, which I had never used before. In fact, I didn't even have a home office at first. I sat down and I thought about the next 30, 60, 90, even 120 days. Like, what am I going to do? And I realized, well, my strategies are, I need to continuously do more webinars, do more teaching, and continuously put out content. And this is going to fuel my pipeline, and it's going to get me, keep me in business, because some of my clients at that point went away. So I had to take the time and write it down. I didn't just think about it, but the idea is you have to write it down and really break down these milestones. And then share the plan with the people in your network, your team. Do you have employees? Share this with employees. Don't social distance from them. I saw that too much. I saw organizations who are very dear to me that I've worked with in the past. They almost, they want to protect the employees. We're going to do whatever it takes that we're going to get through it. But the employees who I know, they're friends of mine in this one organization in particular, they didn't have that transparency. And without that transparency, there was almost a form of trust being lost there. And so we want to be able to act at all times, equal parts empathy, equal parts authority. That's how we're going to be able to get things done. But how does that relate to these goals that we're setting? And what I did was I started to think about the products and offerings that I had, right? I'm thinking about March, I'm thinking about February. What were they doing? How can I repackage that or repurpose for the pain points of today? Case in point is, a webinar just like this. Well, my business partner and I, John, he does webinars, I do webinars. Sometimes we do webinars together where it's like a two-part series. We do these a lot in person, different organizations, different groups. So we said, well, what if we repackage, and organizations and associations, everyone's dying for content. People need content, content, content. What if we repackage what we were already offering, made it for today, made it consumable for the modern, for the pain points of today, and put that out there. And since doing that, we've gotten booked on 3 or 4 different associations. We were able to auction off our services for a charity event, for in the design world that I belong to. And we were just able to continuously stay relevant because we weren't just trying to shove the same formula. We knew the formula had to change a little bit. We had a couple more people join. So let's talk about this brand strategy. This is interesting, right? This is the second strategy I want to show you. Second strategy talks about the foundation that we just covered. 95% of companies have formal brand guidelines. We see it all the time. Yes, everybody knows how to use the logo, how not to use the logo. Yet, only 25% of brands actually stick to their brand guidelines. That's a lot of percentage in the middle of brand guidelines not being used. Equally as interesting is, from a marketing perspective, only 55% of marketers think their internal and external brand are actually aligned. That's not a very high number. So we're looking, majority of brands have brand guidelines, yet very little brands are actually using those brand guidelines. And about half the brands don't even think that there's alignment between internal and external. So what is that telling us here? Well, Engage also tells us this statistic, that only less than 10% of B2B companies say their branding is very consistent. So all these statistics are screaming at me that we need to be more consistent as an organization. We need to instill proper guidelines, live those guidelines every day, and enforce those guidelines so that we can connect with our audience. So let's take it a step further. Let's create an epic brand playbook. Guidelines are no good anymore. Just handing someone a logo usage, you're missing half the story. We need more than just those guidelines, because we're going to see immense benefit across the board. Benefits to shareholders, benefits to your employees, benefits to your customers. And we're going to get to what's included in the brand playbook in a little bit. But just think about these 3 core audience types right here. Your shareholders are the ones who are at the top of the food chain. They're the ones who are driving the business to continue to perform. They're driving the employees to continuously perform. And therefore, it's the customers who need to come in as well and, in a way, perform. They need to transact. And there's a huge benefit to having this playbook. So every one of these and how we articulate and talk to and work with is all aligned and consistent. I asked the question, would you build a house without a framework or a blueprint? And if I was able to see all your great faces right now, you'd probably say, no, we wouldn't build a house without a framework or a blueprint. So the same thing is true about your brand. Because if you're not able to really create this epic brand Bible, like some people call it a Bible or a strategy or a handbook, how are we going to not be that statistic that I showed you earlier, that only 10% think their brand is consistent across the board? I guarantee you, the organizations you're working with now, you can think of 1 or 2 places where consistency is lost. Someone went rogue and it's out there now. And it's a direct representation of the brand. So by having this brand playbook, it's going to keep all your employees and staff on brand at all times. What this is going to do, it's going to save you time. It's going to save you money from having to redo poor brand execution. Having it all centralized in this one great, amazing playbook document keeps everything at hand. You're not searching for files, searching for documents, and you're not recreating the wheel every time. You also eliminate having to deal with poor performing vendors. I see it all the time where we'll create a brand playbook. The brand playbook is given to the brand has a marketing agency. The marketing agency says, wow, if we only had this in the beginning, we would be so much further ahead. Because when you have this for your vendors, whether it's a marketing vendor or an AV vendor or whatever the vendor is, they know everything about your organization. There are no questions asked. It saves in frustration. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone is working towards a common goal and a common vision. You also have this blueprint that you can refer back to and course correct. Like a vehicle, we buy a vehicle, we have to go and get maintenance on the vehicle. Every 3,000 miles, we get an oil change. Every 10,000 miles, we do X, whatever it is. Same thing is with your brand. It is not one and done. It never is one and done. We need to continuously go back to the playbook and make sure that what the strategy that we're leading with is still connecting to our audience, that we're still living the same promise and the same value proposition, and we're still within the same brand promise. And if not, let's course correct, because it's a hell of a lot easier and cheaper to course correct as you go than do it once, wait 3 years, and have to redo everything again. That's a bigger lift. We want to avoid that. We want gradual. And this is how we're going to build lifetime value of our customer and build lifelong fans that are along with us for the journey, because we're adapting to their needs as their needs change. Case in point is what's happening right now with COVID. With the right playbook, you were able to say, listen, our audience has changed. Let's identify that, and then let's change our strategy accordingly. And we've updated our playbook, as opposed to being, oh my God, like, everything is going uphill. Everything is blowing up in front of my face. My foundation isn't sturdy enough to stand on yet. I need to change it. That's when businesses just get into this reactive mode of pure panic and sometimes desperation. And also, by having this playbook, your partnerships are going to be stronger. You're going to be able to expand on their partnerships because you know who it is you serve. Again, you know all these core tenets. You know your business, you know your brand, you know your audience inside and out. And it's not just you, Mr. or Mrs. CEO or founder or that one person on top of the food chain. Everyone organization-wide knows what this playbook is. We can follow this playbook. So what's included in this playbook? First off, your brand strategy documentation. So this is where we're outlining who your personas are, what their goals are, what the reasons to believe are with them, the KPIs, and the strategic direction of the organization. What's our true north? Then with that understanding, well, now we're going to put together the DNA. These are our core values or brand principles. What is our positioning? What problem do we solve and for whom, and what does success look like? What is our promise to our audience? What about our golden circle? Golden circle is Simon Sinek's Power of Why. Clearly states that people do not buy what you do, people buy why you do what you do. So what is your golden circle as an organization? Well, to make money. Well, no, that's a byproduct of what you do. We're all guided by a greater purpose here. What is that greater purpose? We're going to connect with our audience and be able to create amazing ambassadors by doing so. Also, the voice and the tone. Voice and tone are two very different things, right? Your brand voice is evergreen or steadfast. It's not going to really waver all that much. It's going to waver over time as the organization grows, but these are principles, evergreen principles. But your voice tone absolutely changes, and it changes by context. Context being emergency response, our voice, our tone is precise and deliberate. We know how we're going to respond in this kind of manner. On email communication, our tone is this. First time sales pitch, our tone is encouraging and, optimistic, just as an example. And we could break this down many, many, many layers. Idea here is, if you're working with a marketing agency, or you're bringing on a new marketing person, or you're bringing on whomever within the organization, we're not skipping a beat. We know everything that's happening with our brand. Also, what's included to that sense is that messaging framework. So based on our audience and based on our brand DNA, what are our call to actions, right? It's not always going to be buy now. It might be contact us here, contact us now. We might have funny ways of saying it. There might be geographic lingo that we want to include in this. What about our impact statement? Our impact statement isn't our tagline, but these are just core statements that help to represent our brand. Do we know what those are, or are we making them up every time? Do we have this document that everybody can see and use accordingly? And what about the rational and emotional benefits of our features and our offers, right? If we have a 5 or 6 different features that make up our core product set, well, do we know how to message that? Does it change based on persona or audience type? Does it change based on geography? All of this is included in that brand messaging framework. And it truly is a framework or a matrix in a way, where we can link up this persona, this part of the funnel, or this where they're at from a geographic perspective. There's many different ways we can look at it. But again, the goal here is we're not taking an educated guess every time. Proven formulas. And then finally, we get to the thing that everyone thought was included in the brand guidelines or playbook. This is the creative and design usage guide. And it's not just your logo and fonts and colors. Well, what about your web standards, right? Do you know what font your H1, H2, H3s are? Do you know why to use them? How about your print standards if you are actually doing print advertising or anything in print? What about your social media standards? Do you have templates? Do the templates work within your design system? If you have a certain type of brand architecture that allows you to have different design systems, this is where we would illuminate that. So all of these encompassing into one playbook, which actually could be a physical, it could be something physical. This was a playbook that I had an agency I put together a while back. Agency called, where is it? Yeah, EFM. So you could print these out. You could do so many things, but the goal is you got to have it. So what does it look like? What do these things look like? Uber keeps theirs online, which is awesome, right? So many brands are now moving to a more digital brand playbook, which I completely agree with. We should have both. I like to hold things in my hand. But as you can see here, they give you a great menu on the left-hand side as well as on the top navigation. And this is where you can navigate everything that is Uber. Same with Google, and this is just one example of how they were able to take their brand promise, which is a core tenet of their brand DNA, put it on a lifestyle photo, and create this sense of empowerment, something that Google definitely stands on. Some additional examples, top left might be what logo breakdown looks like in addition to some brand pillars. Bottom left are brand pillars, but put in a way that is unique for their organization. Having a couple more people join. On the top right is actually one of my favorite brand playbooks. This is from Romano's Macaroni Grill, actually. And the way that they made this real beautifully designed book that was just visually, it's almost, you want people to stop and read it. It tells the story of your organization. And the story of your organization isn't finished. And that's why I recommend continuously adding and course correcting as you go. Because again, consistent branding across all channels and having a playbook will allow you to do that, increases revenue by 23% via Vengage 2020 brand statistics. All right, so we got this great, amazing playbook. We understand what a brand is, we understand what a brand isn't. We put together our brand playbook. Now we can start to insulate and future-proof the brand. This is where digital strategy comes into play. Digital strategy says, number one, you got to do the foundational brand work that I just talked about. too many organizations want to just jump to digital strategy and we're going to drive traffic, we got to create content, we got to do all these things that everyone keeps telling me I need to do. But if you don't know why you're doing them, who you're doing them for, how we're going to message and talk about it, we're going to have a lot of strikeouts. And when you get to digital, strikeouts could be very expensive and in some cases timely. So I say do the foundational brand work and then create an omni-channel strategy that maps all these marketing activities. So when I say omni-channel, I don't mean, what I mean is don't just focus on one channel. Don't just say everything we're doing, we're going to Facebook and don't think about anything else. Omni-channel says, think about Facebook, think about all your social, but think about search, think about print. Maybe your brand does really well on podcast advertising. Maybe your brand is going to do really well on Hulu or Amazon, OTT advertising. Maybe you want to do a billboard. Whatever that strategy is, and this is a much larger, in-depth conversation, but the idea here is whatever that marketing strategy that you're thinking about, make sure you're mapping back to the goals, persona, and the messaging that we put forth in that brand playbook. Because as we do that and we start to get some learnings and we start to understand what's converting and what isn't converting, marketing data and the insights are going to become available. And then we can continue to course correct. We can continue to evolve. If we know that persona A is not engaging with us, is not converting with us, we understand that through data. We know that, hey, let's just put a very minimal spend there of our marketing, but let's put more spend on what's actually working. It's very simple in that sense. But, invest in what works. And the only way we're going to do that is by having the foundation, launching fast, right? Launching a strategy, a marketing strategy fast to test, those hypotheses or that playbook that we put together and then continue to learn from it. So this is a true area where we can start today and hopefully strategies you can leave here with today. Number one, create that brand playbook. 100%. You need help with it, reach out to me. Let's talk through it. Let's figure out how we can get this done for you. But if there's one thing you leave here with today, it's the playbook. Number two, think about content and think about this idea of an evergreen piece of content. I say the term evergreen because it shouldn't necessarily be based on a finite time or finite campaign. We want something longer. Again, we're looking to future-proof the business. So create that one piece of content and use it as your lead magnet. For example, I got many lead magnets out there. I have a couple different sales funnels. One of them might be my personal branding blueprint that I put together in 2017. To this day, I'm still getting 10 to 15 downloads a month on it. Well, that lead magnet is evergreen, meaning it's not timely and it is continuously, it's continuing to serve, be relevant today. And it positions me as an expert on personal branding. So I have this evergreen piece of content that I use as my lead magnet. I have it on a very simple landing page that when you hit there says, download my free personal branding blueprint and yada, 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 yada. And there's no header. There's no footer. You have one action on this page. It's download my blueprint. That's all I want you to do when you go to this page. It's very, very deliberate. It's focused on conversion. Then I have 2 email campaigns that are very simply thought out email campaigns. Number one is a nurturing campaign that says, as soon as you request to get my download, I say, hey, thanks for signing up and receiving the download. Here it is. Over the next couple days, I'm going to send you additional value. So keep tuned to your inbox. Steven, P.S. So grateful you're here. I include the PS in my email marketing, and this could be a whole other conversation that we have because our eyes scan the top and our eyes scan the bottom of emails. So the PS is a great way to just kind of, hook him at the end. So I might do a 2 to 3 part email series that talks about the personal branding blueprint. I might, extrapolate a couple key terms and give some examples on it. I might give you a horror story or a success story. The whole thing is I want you to continue opening my emails. That's the whole point, is to continue opening my emails so that when I am ready to sell you something, maybe I launched a new course, maybe I wrote a new ebook, maybe I have a new product, I'm selling, I'm selling clickers, whatever it is. We have a new membership, tier that we've just opened up, whatever it is. Well, now I know that my audience is already primed, they're nurtured, they know what it is I'm offering them. Well, now we can create a sales series. So you always want to think about that. You just don't want to nurture. We also want to have the goals in mind of what are we going to sell them with the funnel. And then finally, once we are able to complete the loop, they do buy from us. They do perform whatever action that we're asking them to perform. You get testimonials and social proof. And then you go right back to the top and you continue to iterate and you continue to grow on it. Now, this kind of sales funnel works B2B and B2C, and there's variations, of course. Every business, every sales funnel is based on the business economics and the context of the business. But from a very 30K foot level, this is going to future-proof your business, as evident by everyone being online now because of a pandemic and the world shifting and our audience, our customers shifting to a digital focus first. We need to shift to a digital sales funnel first in order to get the leads, in order to keep our business moving. All right, well, we got, I think, 10 minutes left, and so we are reached the end. I know, hopefully that was insightful. Let me know in the chat, that there was some value there. If there's any questions, I can answer. I know we had, a nice group today, and so I want to be able to provide any kind of additional value as possible. In addition, if you remember that free gift I offered you in the beginning, after this presentation, if you check your email, I'm going to send you all my branding checklist, which has almost a lot of the things that we covered today, in addition to an ebook called Growth Mindset for Entrepreneurs. Really, these are 12 questions that I ask a lot of my clients and a lot of the founders I work with. And in a way, I also ask a lot of the businesses I work with very similar questions as a way just to really dive deep, dive down, and understand understand where they're coming from. So I'm going to send you this as well after the presentation, and a recording of this because I am recording it. Great. Well, what can I help with? We have a couple more minutes, and I appreciate you all. So I just want to put in the chat. I'm right here.
Thanks so much, Steven. I had a question that came in from Tracy. If there's time, does Steven see any value in running focus groups for their insight into your proposed brand?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing with focus groups, they can get really pricey and they get really expensive. So I'm working with an e-commerce brand right now, and one of the things that we put together to test new products and to test whether or not the products are good is we put together a buyer's club. So we're kind of putting our own focus group together in a sense, as opposed to going the formal route. So with that, you want to try, there's 4 of us that are putting together, we're each adding about 10 names of people that we know that we want to send the product to, as well as a questionnaire. And they're going to fill out the questionnaire. It's going to be anonymous on their end on how they respond to it. And then this is giving us the insight and the data that we need. The same brand I'm working with, so that's on the product side. I'm working that same brand that I'm working with. We also do 2 surveys a month, incentivized surveys per month to our audience. So we'll give away a $50 gift card. I'll give away a $50 gift card every week if I was able to, just to get data, right? Because our audience, if we're able to construct the survey in a way, ask the right questions, they're telling us what to sell to them, how to market to them, what kind of content to give them. So in the case of the company I was telling you about, we sell grillware, so barbecue tongs. So the questions we're asking are, well, what are you grilling this weekend? And really diving deep. What kind of spice rubs do you like? Are you a chicory wood or you know, oak wood? What kind of wood do you use? Are you a smoker or you know, or electric smoker or regular smoker? We dive out all these questions, and then we're giving away something at the end. But now they're telling us, because overwhelmingly people are saying, well, we like chicory smokers. Well, now we know that we can write content that's all about chicory smokers because they're telling us. So yes, I would always focus group. And today you could be scrappy with focus groups, cost you very little investment for maximum output. Anything else? Well, yes, Tracy, of course, my pleasure. Well, today was great, and I will follow up with everyone with the recording and those 2 freebies. And I appreciate you all taking the time to attend. And thanks, Jessica, and the 1776 crew. And Scott, I hope to see you when I get back in September. It's like a song. I'll see you in September.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We really appreciate your time, and that was very helpful and